Pablo, good to see you. How you doing? First one in as always. Let's go. How's your weekend, Pablo? Evening, Miles and CMF. Tor, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? How's your weekend? Mike, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How's your weekend? Hey, brother Miles and CMF Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing, brother? How you been? How's everyone doing? Hey, Miles, how are you today? I'm doing great, Autistic. Good to see you as well. How's your weekend? A lot of things have been happening, which we're going to go from tonight's live. Hello, Miles. T, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Good to see you again. Carlos, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been, brother? All good. Let's go, Mike. Okay. Let's do intro, disclaimer, and what we're going to go through on tonight's live. A few things have been happening, which we're going to go through that everyone should be aware of. So, welcome to the CMF Live if you're watching this for the first time ever. The CMF stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards, for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, pretty much vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. We also do live Q&As essentially on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions anywhere in between the show, put it down in the comment section. More than happy to help you out. I read everybody's comments one by one and give a response on live. Also, a disclaimer of this essentially live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. Now, on tonight's live, we're going to go through essentially what's been happening inside the market space in terms of why is the market wanted to be sent down, especially today. We're also going to go through some essentially announcement news regarding essentially certain companies doing certain things inside the blockchain space. We're going to go through some Fed news on tonight's live. Trump is once again not happy that so far we haven't had any sort of rate cuts still, but we're going to be having it very soon, if I'm not mistaken, about 2 to 3 days. We're also going to go through some SEC news on tonight's live as well. We're going to go through some essentially other announcements by blockchain companies, and we're also going to go through some token announcements on tonight's live. We're going to talk about the British government on tonight's live regarding how far they've come inside the crypto space, because we know how far America's came in all the Asian countries and some of the Middle Eastern countries, and even the EU has come very far inside the crypto space. The UK has been very sluggish, the best word to use, inside the crypto space. We're also going to talk about the politics side of crypto, because we're coming up to some sort of midterm votes in the US, which essentially we all know that there's a super crypto pack, which we're going to go through on tonight's live. We're also going to be talking about the EU on tonight's live and regarding Russia, because things are happening over there. Some things might spike up even more, which could weigh in and cause a ripple effect inside the stock market and essentially weighing into the crypto market space. And as always, Ripple news to go through on tonight's essentially live as well. Now, before we go through the first news, which is regarding what's happening with the market space, especially today, just want to take a few seconds to say thank you so much to everybody from the CMF who has already liked and retweeted this live. If you're watching this on X, honestly, thank you so much to everybody who has retweeted and essentially liked this live if you're watching this on X. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much to everyone who's also liked the live and essentially put a comment outside the live also. And if you haven't, CMF members, liked or retweeted this live, please take 2 seconds to like and retweet this live if you're watching this on X. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just drop a like and drop a comment on essentially outside the live as well. Helps with the algorithm. Now, before we go for the first news, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we'll go straight to the first news, back to comments, news, comments, and so on. And also, once again, welcome to episode 373 of the CMF Live. So let's see where we're at inside the comment section. We were here. Good evening, CMF family. Everyone, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and all CMF. Addy, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hi, Miles and family. Alex, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and CMF. How are you? I'm doing great. Callie, good to see you as well. How you doing? Pin the live so we can share. I've pinned it already. It's the first essentially thing on my X. I've pinned it. On YouTube, I don't know how to pin it, but on X, I've done it. Good evening, Miles and CMF. Free and forever. Good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Manny, good to see you as well. How you doing? And come on, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? Thanks so much for the kind comments on the posts I made today on X. Good evening, all. JP, good to see you as well, brother. How you doing? How you been? Now, perfect time because about to go for the first news, which is why is the crypto market space, 1 to 2% down? We are coming up slowly to maybe some good news, which is rate cuts. But for the time being, the market's been all over the place. So here it is. Why is crypto down today? Bitcoin price, Ethereum price, XRP, Solana, everything's been all over the place. Top cryptos, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP slipped more than 2% in the last essentially few hours, causing broader sell-offs in the crypto markets essentially today. Within an hour, BTC price fell essentially from $116,700 to around $114,700 despite positive sentiments due to Fed rate cuts resuming this week. The crypto market caps essentially slumps below $4 essentially $1 trillion as ETH, XRP, Solana, Cardano, ADA, Hype, Chainlink all plunge 3% to 7% on the downtrend. Now, Dogecoin also dropped more than 10% in the last 24 hours. Notably, Coinbase's 50 index tumbled more than 2.5% also. AI coins, including Wild, Near, Render, and Virtual, were essentially impacted the worst regarding what's happening inside the market space. And what is actually happening, what has pushed these crypto markets slightly down, is basically what's going on between the feud of the US and China in a way. So Bloomberg today reported that China has targeted Nvidia Corp, violated anti-monopoly essentially laws and a high-profile 2020 acquisition deal of Minix. Now, China's State Administration for Market Regulations, in its initial investigation, found that Nvidia violated essentially China's anti-monopoly laws in relation to the acquisitions and the conditions agreed within the regulator. So, NVDA essentially stock slips almost 2% to $174, and the permanent essential market hours today, dragging down AI coins with it also. And also because it's a tech stock and Bitcoin, even though it's not supposed to, and everybody will say inside the crypto space, the ones that support Bitcoin will say Bitcoin is essentially a digital gold, a safe haven asset, and so on. But in all reality, Bitcoin does sometimes follow tech stocks. So when Nvidia went down, AI coins went down, Bitcoin also followed in suit, which essentially pulled the rest of the market space down. Trading volumes has decreased nearly 22% over the last 24 hours, indicating a massive decline in interest among traders. Other top, essentially AI crypto tokens also recorded massive downsides. In terms of moves, Near Protocol, Render, Virtual also fell more than 5%. However, some AI coins have started witnessing a buy, essentially dip type of sentiment going on. The crypto market saw $450 million in liquidations in just the last 24 hours, with nearly $380 million in longs and $70 million in shorts liquidated over the past 24 hours. Over 170,000 traders were liquidated in the last 24 hours, with the largest single liquidation order of BTC to USD worth $9 million on crypto exchange Bybit, also liquidated. Notably, $150 million in longs were liquidated in just an hour, according to CoinGlass data. This comes ahead of the high expectations of the US Federal Reserve resuming interest rate cuts. That's going to be happening on Wednesday, with expectations of 3 Fed rate cuts by 75 basis points in a total this year. However, JP Morgan warned US stocks could drop even further, essentially, if the Federal Reserve restarts the rates this week. Markets are near record highs despite essentially weak labor data, but history essentially shows that equities often pause easing beginnings, and traders expect a 25 basis cut this week, but inflation concerns may slow down the Fed's response later this year, and Morgan Stanley also reported on the matter as well. Now, institutions are still coming out and saying Fed rate cuts should be happening. JP Morgan's coming out on the basis of Fed rate cuts will happen, but the stock market will be impacted horrendously. Even though the labor market data wasn't what essentially they thought it was going to be, they're still suggesting that the Fed rate cuts should still be there. Trump is, as usual, showing his hatred towards Jerome Powell, which, you got to give it to the guy, because Jerome Powell is an absolute moron. He should have done rate cuts a while ago, to be fairly honest, for the market space, especially for the US market space. But then again, there is an anti-American party happening inside the US itself, to be fairly honest. But some are suggesting 25 basis rate cuts, essentially 25 basis point rate cuts is still on the table. Some are suggesting 75 basis point rate cuts, and some are just suggesting 50 basis points. Now, if we get either one for the crypto market space, it's going to be a good day. Now, the impacts of that will last on a happy note inside the crypto space, 24 to 48 hours until we have the next news. But this month, let's not forget, this month is also the month of the Clarity Act, which is what we really need inside the crypto space. So the SEC, CFTC, and the rest of the crypto space or institutions know what they're doing moving forward, because that will bring, in its own words, clarity towards the market space. Now, the Federal Reserve is what we're going to talk about on tonight's live. So moving on, essentially from federal rate cuts, but sticking to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is set to unveil its first interest rate reduction in almost a year this Wednesday. As anticipation essentially builds, Fitch Ratings essentially has issued a stark caution regarding the current economic landscape and Trump's administration fiscal policies. Furthermore, three leading essentially financial entities have provided their forecasts. This report explores these experts' insights in detail. Several financial institutions have expressed their views on the upcoming interest rate change. Many argue that despite the prior negative or achieving a soft landing, current economic data supports the need for reduced rates, with postponement essentially of the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation goal. According to UniCredit, employment concerns have drawn attention as recent data revisions highlights vulnerabilities and payroll figures have fallen, adding essentially pressure on the Federal Reserve to essentially revise its strategies. Whilst Fargo's analyst noted past essentially rate standoffs as an indicator essentially of internal resistance to adjustments, they foresee a reduction aimed at essentially stabilizing inflation and complex economic stimuli. Now, Societe Generale warns that the balance of risk requires decisive essentially interventions diverging from consensus forecasts, and they suggest the scale of action may necessitate immediate, more significant cuts to address underlying threats. Fitch Ratings essentially recently spotlighted potential pitfalls in governmental policies affecting semiconductor sectors. U.S. stake in Intel might generate harmful sector inefficiencies. The Ohio plant's expansion essentially could affect Intel's financial health if not externally essentially supported. State involvement risk hindering competitive market advantages internationally. Pressure from the essentially government could impact the profitability of leading tech firms like Nvidia, which is now having this battle situation with China, which essentially affected the crypto market space. Concerns over weighing in on global competitiveness for American technology giants due to current policy remains pressing. This could echo throughout risk markets, potentially essentially straying the burgeoning cryptocurrency sector as a consequence. Fitch Ratings essentially warns of such repercussions, emphasizing the potential inefficiencies and decreased essentially profitability for high-profile essentially U.S. companies. Such developments could prove beyond essentially traditional markets and risking broader economic impact. So, a lot of companies are coming out essentially suggesting rate cuts still on the page. However, some are also suggesting that this whole tech battle that's going on could still continue to affect the crypto market space because Bitcoin still essentially, follows tech stocks. And as long as Bitcoin keeps on following tech stocks, then every time a tech company like Nvidia in this case gets sued by another essentially country or another company or so on, then tech stocks will be impacted on the stock market, which will Bitcoin will get impacted, which means the rest of the crypto market space will get impacted due to still not having regulations. So the faster we get regulations out of the way, the better it is, because that's when decoupling happens. And whenever Bitcoin gets impacted by a tech stock, XRP, Solana, Ethereum, essentially AVAX, Cardano, HBAR, XDC, XLM, they won't get affected anymore once we go into utility. Of course, market manipulation will always be there. It's never going to go away, but it wouldn't impact them as much, and they wouldn't be following Bitcoin's footsteps if we're in utility. As I previously said, it's like, imagine you have a TV remote, or essentially BlackRock has a TV remote, let's just say, for example, and it has two buttons on it, up and down, and it only affects Bitcoin. If they press up, everybody goes up. If they press down, everybody goes down. But if we go into utility, that TV remote that only works on Bitcoin won't be affecting the rest of the market space anymore because we have decoupled. And that's why decoupling is very important. Regulations are very important for the crypto space. Now, SEC is what we talk about next. But don't worry, this whole tech situation won't last too long. 24 hours minimum, 48 hours max, the market will move on. But let's not forget, Wednesday is a big deal if we get those rate cuts coming in. Now, SEC chair is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Before we go through that, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see where we were at. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, essentially put it down to the comment section. More than happy to help you out. Let's see where we're at. Well, Bitcoin is definitely not following gold today. Definitely not. I'll be very honest. Even though Bitcoin maxis have been telling us for years This is digital gold. Michael Saylor keeps on tweeting out, Bitcoin is the digital gold. So many other essentially CEOs and CFOs have been coming out saying this is digital gold. Yet it doesn't react like digital gold. It's like calling essentially, a bicycle, for example, a Bugatti Veyron, and in reality, it's just a bicycle. It's not essentially as fast as a Bugatti Veyron in any sort of a way, or has any sort of resemblance to a Bugatti Veyron. It's the same sort of with Bitcoin. They keep on saying it's digital gold, but I'm not seeing it. Sometimes it moves like digital gold, and sometimes it moves like a tech stock, unfortunately. And it really doesn't react like essentially risk-off asset, more like a risk-on asset in some cases. But again, I don't want to dig into Bitcoin too much, but that is the truth. Happy Pisces, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Scott, good to see you as well. How you doing? Morning, Miles of CMF. Shelly, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been, Shelly? Evening, Miles of CMF. How was your weekend? It was a very rushed weekend, I would have to say. Hello, Miles of CMF members. I hope that everyone had a good day. Love you guys. Let's go, Scott. Thanks so much for the kind words, brother. Share the live. Hit the like button too. Let's go, Scott. Hello, everyone. Let's go, Scott. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Hi, Miles. Michael, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you today? Doing good, Michael. Good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Now, SEC. The SEC chair signals to everyone the end to enforcement first, an era in the crypto space. That era, however, appears to be essentially ending. Under the leadership of the new chair, Paul Atkins, the regulator is rolling back its enforcement first playbook and signaling a more cooperative relationship with digital asset firms. I mean, we could definitely see that from the new SEC since Gary Gensler has left. They have become a lot more friendlier towards the crypto space. And with all the essentially nice things they're saying, the positive things they're saying about cryptocurrencies, also going around American states, talking to crypto firms, not just the massive crypto firms out there, also to the startup crypto firms out there, getting their essentially opinions in and what they can do and provide for the American citizens to essentially thrive in this market space, and also dropping all the cases. It definitely shows they are 100% positive. Atkins essentially confirmed in April by a narrow essentially Senate vote, said in a recent Financial Times interview that companies should no longer fear sudden raids or lawsuits over minor violations inside the crypto space, basically. Instead, the agency will issue a primary notice, giving businesses time to essentially address technical missteps before formal action is considered. In his views, the regulator should not be shooting first and asking questions later, which is exactly what Gary Gensler did. He was just shooting first, but there was no questions afterwards either, to be fairly honest. The change marks a dramatic, essentially, departure from the tenure of the former chairman, Gary Gensler, who became known for an aggressive campaign against crypto firms, especially against Ripple Labs, Terraform Labs, Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, all faced lawsuits under his watch and cases that forced the industry to spend billions in legal battles. And critics essentially accused the agency of creating rules by litigation rather than providing a clear regulatory path. So honestly, we're so grateful that we're past that Gary Gensler era. Now, Atkins himself echoed those criticisms, arguing that many past cases lacked precedent and predictability. He also essentially taken a softer stance on the long-running debate over token classification. While Gensler maintained that most cryptocurrencies fall under securities laws, Atkins has suggested the majority should not be treated as such. He also essentially endorsed the idea of trading tokenized stocks and bonds, provided they carry the same rights as the underlying instruments. To reinforce this new direction, the SEC has created the Crypto Task Force, which we've talked about previously, aimed at engaging directly with the industry from now on. Several enforcement actions launched during Gensler's leadership have already been dropped, reflecting the administration's desire to open dialogue rather than escalate conflict. Atkins' arrival reflects a broader policy shift under President Donald Trump, who has sought to encourage blockchain innovation while reducing essentially what he sees as regulatory overreach. For crypto firms, a long wary of regulators, the next 6 months may serve as a test of whether this cooperative model can replace the competitive stance that we had in the past. So the next 6 months coming from the SEC is going to be, an innovative place for the crypto space moving forward for the next 6 months and beyond. So we should be expecting some good news coming out of the SEC in terms of bringing that innovation back to the US, then rather than letting it go, essentially what Gary Gensler was doing beforehand. Now, honestly, the SEC, in my point of view, has moved a lot more faster than they usually did in the past. There is still a lot of things the SEC needs to clarify regarding crypto space. And one thing they really need to clarify is what Coinbase has stated essentially on Friday regarding the text messages that disappeared with Gary Gensler and certain essentially crypto cases, especially the Coinbase case, which is why Coinbase is suing them. So is that the reason why Gary Gensler had to come out today and essentially suggest, even for a second, that the crypto space is changing? Essentially, it's innovation. The SEC is changing. We're all the good guys now. Is that why? Because Coinbase is now about to be countersuing essentially the SEC for those text messages that will suddenly disappear from Gary Gensler's phone. But anyways, putting that to one side, the good news is, once again, the SEC is coming out, and essentially the SEC is coming out once again and essentially saying we're standing with the crypto space. Now, Robinhood is what we're going to talk about on tonight's slide next. Robinhood seeks SEC approval for essentially a venture fund accessible to retail investors. Robinhood is about to be introducing something quite interesting towards the crypto space. Now, we know for a fact crypto companies, essentially crypto exchanges have definitely evolved over time. We have crypto.com, who's now essentially offering in certain jurisdictions around the world, essentially stocks, bonds, and cryptocurrencies, and even going towards tokenization of stocks. They're not the only ones. Kraken's also on that maneuver as well, but they're not doing it in the US market space so far, just one or two stocks, but the rest essentially is outside the United States market space. But a lot of things are changing, and crypto exchanges, for example, are definitely expanding into other areas inside the financial space. And essentially Robinhood is thinking about doing this. Brokerage firm Robinhood is planning a closed-end fund that would give retail investors access to its venture capital portfolio, a space traditionally essentially reserved for institutions and high net essentially worth individuals. The brokerage disclosed today that it has filed a essentially form N2 with the US Securities Exchange Commission SEC to register shares of Robinhood Ventures Fund, essentially RVI, which will be managed by its new subsidiary Robinhood Ventures DE. If approved, shares of RVI will be listed on the New York Stock Exchange, where they can be bought and sold through participating brokerage platforms. Robinhood said the fund will back companies at the frontiers of their respective industries. Though it did not essentially name any specific sectors, but we can all assume they most definitely mean blockchain and Web3. Opening these investments to retail investors would mark a shift in access. Until now, participation in early stage and private companies has largely been limited to venture capital firms and wealthy backers. Robinhood's venture strategy could extend into digital assets, an area where the company has been expanding aggressively. It already offers cryptocurrency trading, recently essentially acquired major exchange like Bitstamp, and bought Canadian crypto firm WonderFi for $179 million. The brokerage firm also essentially pushed into tokenization, offering tokenized stocks and experimenting with private stock tokens, a product essentially that has drawn scrutiny from some industry observers. The ones that hate tokenized stocks are the brokerage firms, because the more we move towards tokenized stocks, the less we would technically need brokerage firms. Venture capital funding has rebounded essentially in 2025, led by a surge in US startups focused on artificial intelligence, and global VC investments totaled $189.3 essentially billion in the first essentially half of this year, from $152.4 billion in the same period in 2024, according to S&P Global. While crypto essentially venture funding remains a small component of the overall essentially VC landscape, the sector drew $10 billion in second quarter alone, its strongest showing since 2022. And essentially crypto rank data shows that companies raised more than $10 billion in quarter two, with June contributing essentially over half that amount. Key themes driving crypto investments include tokenization, stablecoin, infrastructure, and decentralized finance under US securities laws. Many of these are early stage, essentially private offerings remain limited to accredited investors, curbing retail participation. However, now, if you are inside the retail section and you want to be involved in these startup blockchain companies, you can do it through Robinhood. So not only that, essentially everybody will now not only that everybody has access to essentially purchasing cryptocurrencies, buying and selling cryptocurrencies, tokenization of stocks, bonds, yields, everything's pretty much getting available on essentially crypto exchanges. But you can also now invest into startup companies through Robinhood, blockchain startup companies, Web3 startup companies, and so on. So if you're somebody that wants to be involved in every sector of the crypto space, maybe look into Robinhood, essentially this new venture they're going towards which is being essentially investing into startup companies, blockchain startup companies, Web3 startup companies, or tech companies, and you could essentially buy their share on their bet of betting on the right company. Not financial advice whatsoever at all. Now, Coinbase is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Now, some of you might have heard regarding essentially what Coinbase might be introducing, which is their base token. Coinbase is a massive exchange. Massive exchange. If they are about to be releasing essentially their own token, let's say base token, it's something to look into. Again, you shouldn't buy anything you don't understand in any sort of a way, but it is something that you might want to look into. So here it is. Coinbase is exploring a network token for its Ethereum Layer 2 solution, Base. The announcement essentially, which came out today during the Basecamp 2025, essentially in Stowe, Vermont, marks a significant shift from the company's previous stance. It had no plans whatsoever to launch a token. And according to Coinbase on X, Base is beginning to explore a network token. We're in the early phases of exploration and don't have any specific to share around the timing, design, or governance of the token, just that a Base token might be coming. This signals a new phase for Base as it seeks to expand beyond being a secure and affordable blockchain. Previously, Coinbase repeatedly said it had no plans to launch a token. However, with Base now achieving a sub-second low-cost transaction and essentially rapid growth, the company seeks a token as a potential driver for decentralization and community participation. In a blog post, Coinbase announced an open source bridge between Base and Solana. This tool will allow users to move assets seamlessly between essentially two chains. Users will be able to deposit and use Sol within Base apps or bring Solana essentially assets into Base. And builders essentially will gain access to broader liquidity and a larger audience. The bridge is live on the testnet and will roll out essentially on the mainnet in the coming weeks. Coinbase also stressed Base's vision of being essentially the center of the global on-chain economy. The exchange aspires to do away with the essentially ecosystem by interconnecting chains, such as that there is essentially frictionless engagements with builders and their users. And according to the announcement, Base Batches 002 developer program will kick off on September 29th. The program is designed to guide developers through building their projects. It offers mentorship, funding, and global exposure to essentially help turn their fresh ideas into fully developed products. And earlier this year, the first essentially Base Batch program brought together 5,000 developers from over 100 countries so far. Coinbase supported these builders by providing more than $1 million in funding, helping many projects come to life. Additionally, over 1 million people have joined the waitlist essentially for Base App Beta. 40% of the test users have already interacted with Tiny Apps, and app developers have made $500,000 so far. In the exploration of the token network, the introduction of a cross-chain bridge and continued support for developers highlights Coinbase's ambition to build a decentralized and interconnected on-chain ecosystem. So it's not just going to become essentially a token for the exchange. It's a token for the Base network, essentially, for all the development that's going to be going on-chain globally and so on. If you want to be a part of essentially what Coinbase is trying to build through Base, maybe have a look into essentially their Base token. Again, if you do see a Base token anywhere listed inside a market space right now, it's a scam. Base token still does not exist whatsoever. Coinbase has not given a timeline whatsoever either. In the past, they said they will never create a token. They changed their minds now. They said they're looking into it. No timeline whatsoever. So if you see a Base token, it's not the real token because it's not out yet. So just keep that in mind if you want to be involved in what Coinbase is trying to build. Before we go through the next news, which is regarding the United Kingdom, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions or comments, put it down in the comment section. I'm more than happy to help you out. Let's see where we're at. Miles, institutions are really trying to push the retail, even though we are a small proportion of XRP holders. I mean, I did say 2 years ago that the last stage will be frustration. Never let frustration get to you inside the crypto space. You know, a lot of people have been holding for 5 years, you know, for XRP, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, and so on. the last stage always, you'll go through every stage as a crypto trader, as a crypto holder, or so on. The same applies to the stock market, depending on what you're holding. But the last stage will always be frustration. If you let frustration get to you, then you could lose your positions. Not saying frustration is getting to you in any sort of way, Scott. Just trying to let everyone know what I said 2 years ago. Don't ever let frustration get to you, because that is the last step before you know what. Evening, Miles, CMF. Pierce, good to see you as well. How you doing, Pierce? How you been? Good evening, Miles, CMF. Tanner, good to see you as well, bud. How you been? Okay, now, the UK. The EU is very advanced inside the crypto space. Russia is even advanced inside the crypto space. China is thinking about advancing inside the crypto space. Hong Kong, pretty advanced. Singapore, pretty advanced. India, extremely advanced inside the crypto space. The United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, every country pretty much has taken some sort of footsteps inside the crypto space. The UK, it's moving at a snail's pace. We still don't have pretty much anything. I mean, we hear all these major announcements come out of the UK regarding the crypto space. The UK is about to do this and that, and nothing's passed through. Jack Squad has pretty much passed through. And every country, in terms of the crypto space, is pretty much above us, to be fairly honest. And, well, the newest one is an interesting one, to be fairly honest, because they're going backwards. And I didn't think that was possible. From a country that has no regulations for the crypto space, I thought maybe, they'll take one step forward. Everybody else is taking 10 steps forward. And the UK has decided to take one step backwards inside the crypto space with essentially with a very interesting proposal, which is this. The UK crypto industry pushes back on the Bank of England's stablecoin cap. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, a stablecoin cap. Now, you might have heard of the CBDC cap, but a stablecoin cap. So the Bank of England has proposed plans to fix how much individuals and businesses can hold in systematic stablecoins. Drawing sharp dispute from the crypto industry groups, based on that, individuals could be limited to between £10,000 and £20,000, which is equivalent to $13,600 and $27,200, while businesses might face a top of amount of £10 million, which is around $13.6 million. So if you're a business owner in the UK, if this passes through, if you're a business owner inside the UK, you are allowed to hold up to $13.6 million in stablecoins, nothing more, apparently. If you are a retail person inside the UK, you're not allowed to hold more than $27,000 and $200, essentially $27,000 and $200 as a retail member in stable coins. This is what I mean by the UK might have just taken a step backwards. The proposal is aimed at protecting financial stability, especially by reducing the risk of big deposit outflows from banks. Critics essentially, however, warn it would create heavy enforcement challenges, leave UK users and firms at disadvantage, and push activity towards more inherent markets abroad. Hell yes, it would. Already, the UK number of millionaires and billionaires who have left is tremendous, and they've all left to the Middle Eastern market space or the US market space, and they're still leaving. The current government that we have right now, the Labour Party, if they continue the way they're continuing now, there'll be nothing left. They'll literally milk, essentially, the United Kingdom completely dry before they leave. Industry voices argue the proposed caps are unworkable in real-world terms. Tom, essentially, Gordon of Coinbase said the limits would hurt UK servers and the City of London and even weaken, essentially, sterling British pounds. Simon of the UK Crypto Essentially Asset Business Council warned that enforcing the rules would mean building costly new identity systems, since issuers don't usually track token holders day to day. Ricardo of the Payments Association added that such restrictions make no more sense than putting caps on cash or bank account balances. The UK come off as a more restrictive than any other major market space in the world right now. Russia has a better market space in terms of the crypto sector than the United Kingdom if they try to pass this law. In the US, for example, the recently passed Genius Act regulates stablecoin issuers, reserves, and redemptions, but doesn't set limits on how much people can hold. So you can hold unlimited amount of stablecoins in the United States or anywhere else around the world. But for some reason in the UK, they want to restrict how much stablecoins we can hold. The European Union has also taken a similar decision on the MiC, essentially focusing on issuers and consumer safeguards instead of hard limits on personal holdings. The public argues that stricter limits in the UK risk undermining its competitiveness in the global crypto industry. Officials like Sasha Mills, executive director for the financial market infrastructure, argue that large stablecoin balances could ignite sudden outflows that may weaken banks and deposit bases. The limits are also seen as temporary steps to manage risk connected to payment systems using stablecoins that are already essentially systematic or expected to get there. The biggest hurdle essentially is enforcement. Regulators would need ways to track stablecoin movements, monitor who holds what, and flag large accounts. No small task given crypto's decentralized setup and the persona nature of most tokens. So in other words, this is just the beginning. If the UK government is able to pass such a ridiculous law where you're where you're only allowed to hold $27,000 worth of stablecoins max a retail person is allowed to hold, if they pass a certain law, how will they essentially track people? Well, then it will lead to the UK government designing some sort of digital system or software where they can track your wallets 24/7. So then they would know you only have a certain amount of stablecoins. What are they going to say next? What is the UK government going to say next? You're only allowed to hold 1,000 XRP. You're only allowed to hold 1,000 XLM. You're only allowed to hold 1,000 Solana, 1,000 Ethereum, or so on. That is the most absurd thing I've heard from any government, to be fairly honest. Honestly, Russia doesn't have these rules that we're about to be getting inside the United Kingdom. It's absolutely absurd to be having these, actually, for the UK government to be even having these discussions while everything else that's going on in the UK, which I'm not going to get into in any sort of a way, but with everything else that's going on inside the UK, why the hell are they coming after our stablecoins? Stupidest thing I've ever heard. I honestly couldn't believe that they took a step backwards. They didn't even take one step backwards. They took 20 steps backwards inside the crypto space. If they continue like this, not only is, the traditional, essentially entrepreneurs leaving the United Kingdom, even the digital entrepreneurs will be leaving the United Kingdom. There'll be nobody left in this country. It will just be essentially an island that's completely vacant. And it also goes back to, unfortunately, what I said 2 years ago regarding CBDCs. They don't like the idea that if they introduce CBDCs, you can bypass it using cryptocurrency. So what they're trying to do is essentially limit to how much cryptocurrencies you can hold now, or stablecoins in this instance, to how much stablecoins you can hold now, so that later when we go into CBDCs, you have a certain limit, and once your limit runs out, you're trapped in CBDCs. Absolutely stupid. Now, let's go inside the comment section before we go through the next news on tonight's live. Honestly, it is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my lifetime. Genuinely, there'll be nobody left in this country. The only people that will be left in this country is the ones that are crossing the border right now into this country, because everybody else who lives in this country is definitely going to get the F out if this continues. Let's see where we're at. Frustrating. This is fun. Yeah. Hi, Miles and CMF. Stormy, good to see you. How you doing? Hi, Miles. Woodhouse, good to see you. How you doing? 10,000 millionaires and billionaires. And that is only the last year. Never mind this year. Facts. Roughly, 100%. I saw the numbers as well. Somewhere around, it was 10,000 millionaires to billionaires have already left the United Kingdom last year. This year, the numbers will be 10 times higher. Hi, Miles and CMF. George, good to see you. How you doing? Are you packing your bags, Miles? Thinking about it. Hi, Miles. What happens on 17th of September? We're supposed to be getting 70 September. Well, two things are happening in September. One is rate cuts. It's going to be happening on this Wednesday, essentially, which is 17th, if we get rate cuts. And the second thing, end of the month, is the Clarity Act, if it doesn't get moved. Which rules is it to hold less crypto? It's not a rule yet. It's just what the Bank of England is discussing. That's control, pretty much. UK government said, oh, I agree. The UK is trying to be a crypto hub, my ass. I agree also. Miles, can you elaborate more about what they want to do with us holding crypto? They haven't said what they want to do with us. They just said they're thinking about putting limits on stable coins inside the United Kingdom. Coinbase, or so many crypto firms are angry right now at the British government for these ridiculous discussions they're having regarding the crypto space. Instead of bringing innovation for the crypto space, they're ruining this country day by day. Miles, can you elaborate? Sorry, that's pretty much. Hopefully those stupid rules go away. Is the UK government against the US government, against Trump and stablecoins? Yes, in a way. Regarding Trump trying to get control of the Federal Reserve, it's having an impact on the British government. The British government is able to have control of the Federal Reserve. As much as the Federal Reserve will try to say they're independent from everybody, it's an absolute, ludicrous thing to say, to be fairly honest. The British government have some sort of hand inside the Federal Reserve, and they're angry at Trump, not showing it, but they're angry at Trump for trying to control the Federal Reserve or remove certain members from the Federal Reserve. And the British government is actually angry about that because they have some sort of control over the Federal Reserve. As ridiculous it might sound to some people, but they do. If you check the records and check the names and check the links between them, you'll see it. Miles, so in the UK, they know how much crypto hold per person? No, they don't know. If they want to do that, they have to find a way, a system. A system needs to be created for them to track your day-to-day crypto transactions. I was just about to say the only people that will be there are the illegals going crazy what they are doing over there, running the country. Honestly, facts. You know what the UK feels now like? When Joe Biden was in control of the United States, and the way the US was when Joe Biden was in control, and the country, essentially the US was completely going backwards in time. It's the same scenario that's happening over here. We've got our own version of Joe Biden, essentially. Australia is heading that way too. This country could be so good, but no, I agree. The UK could be an incredible country, honestly, incredible country, but unfortunately, absolutely. Let's go, Kai. Now, pro crypto. On the subject of politics and crypto, while the UK is taking 10 steps backwards or 1,000 steps backwards, the US is taking another step forward inside the crypto space. So when we have British politicians trying to suggest to control everybody's certain amount of stable coins, in the US we have super PAC cryptos, essentially, who are funding politicians to bring more innovation inside the US. Unlike the UK is trying to remove innovation from the UK. So here it is. Pro-crypto super PAC, which is something we've talked about in the past when the presidency voting was going on between Trump, essentially, and regarding the US, who's going to win and become president, is when we're talking about the super PAC. So for those new to essentially the political landscape, and politics goes hand in hand with finance. For those new to the political landscape, essentially a super PAC, a political action committee, in other words, is an independent political committee. It can raise unlimited sums of money from corporations, unions, associations, and individuals. Unlike traditional PACs, or essentially super PACs, can spend unlimited sums to advocate for against political candidates. Who funds these crypto super PACs? Ripple funds these super PACs. They get politicians in favor of cryptocurrencies inside the United States. Coinbase funds these PACs. Robinhood essentially funds these PACs. A lot of these crypto firms essentially are the ones that are behind these crypto super PACs to get politicians behind the crypto space. Traditional PACs, these super PACs, essentially can spend unlimited sums. The establishment of a well-funded pro-crypto super PAC means a concentrated effort to support candidates who campaign and champion for digital assets, oppose those who might hinder innovation. It might be something to essentially we need inside the United Kingdom. This isn't just about money, it's about amplifying the voice of the crypto community in the halls of power. Advocacy. It will fund campaigns supporting crypto-friendly politicians. Education. It can educate voters and policymakers on the benefits of digital assets. Influence. It aims to shape policy discussions around blockchain and cryptocurrencies. With over $100 million at its disposal, this new pro-crypto super PAC is poised to become a formidable force in the upcoming midterm elections. Such substantial fundings allows for extensive advertising campaigns, voter outreach programs, and street endorsements. This level of essentially financial backing can sway public opinion and even determine the outcomes of essentially closely contested races. Eleanor emphasized that this essentially particular committee is distinct from Fairshake, another prominent crypto-focused super PAC. This indicates a growing multifaceted, essentially, approach to crypto advocacy, suggesting a broader, essentially, and more diverse effort to influence political outcomes. The goal is clear: to foster an environment where digital innovation can thrive. The emergence of this powerful pro-crypto super PAC highlights the increasing maturity of the cryptocurrency industry. It signifies a shift from a purely technological development to active engagements in political processes. This engagement is crucial for several reasons. Regulatory clarity. This industry seeks clear, sensible regulations rather than prohibitive measures. Innovation protection. It aims to protect the nascent essentially blockchain technology from overly restrictive laws. Economic growth. Advocates believe that crypto can drive significant economic growth and job creation. However, challenges remain. The crypto industry faces skepticism from some lawmakers and regulators, and this super PAC role will be to bridge that gap, presenting a compelling case for the potential of digital assets to widen the audience. We're coming up to the midterms. Obviously, we want to bring more politicians in favor of cryptocurrency, so it's great to see the super PAC has $100 million inside of it to get those politicians voted in. This massive investment in a pro-crypto super PAC set as a precedent for essentially future political involvements from the digital asset sector. It demonstrates long-term commitments to shaping policy and ensuring a favorable regulatory environment. As the crypto market continues to evolve, so too will its essentially political footprint. For individuals investing in cryptocurrencies, this development offers a glimmer of hope for more supportive policies. It suggests that the industry is not just waiting for regulations to happen, but it's actively working to influence them into essentially the positive direction. Keep an eye on the news. The midterm elections approach, and the impact of this funding will have undoubtedly become clearer. So as the US essentially midterms are coming up and crypto super PACs are about to be, essentially helping certain politicians who are in favor of bringing crypto innovation into the US to get them voted in. On the other side of the pond in the UK, we're trying to make life more difficult for the crypto space and everybody else that lives in this country, to be fairly honest. It's honestly, it's like two different worlds, genuinely like two different worlds. In one world, it's all about crypto innovation, and that's pretty much the rest of the world. And in the other world, which is just the United Kingdom, well, we're going backwards. It's funny, no? Even Russia doesn't have those laws. They've never even discussed those laws, to be fairly honest. And on the topic of Russia, EU sanctions Russian crypto and oil under pressure. Before we go through the next news on tonight's live, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening first inside the comment section, and then we'll go for the next news, which is regarding the EU, Russia, crypto, oil, sanctions. A few things have been happening. Let's see what's happening inside the comment section. As I previously, this is live, which means if you have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to help you out. Let's see, we were at here. UK wants to become new Rwanda. Miles, do you see a future where this can be fixed? In the UK? Unfortunately not. We don't have a political group that could bring the change we think. I mean, there is the Reform Party, which is Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is a man that has previously lied. we don't have a single political party in this country that I could hand on heart say, yes, this political party will make a change. Every politician gives a very big, impression of what's to come next. Not a single one has actually applied what they said in history, to be fairly honest. I don't know any single politician that has actually came out on stage and said, we are going to do this, 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 and this. And then when they actually do become essentially a prime minister or a president of a country, nothing happens. They don't do anything they listed on their list until at the end of their term, and they do one or two things just to say, well, I did something. We don't have a single political party. We need somebody like Trump in the UK, and unfortunately, we don't have that person. It's my point of view, honestly. Out of all of them, Reform seems to be the one that's bringing in some genuineness. Yet, I still can't say hand on heart, all of them are horrendous. Labour, horrendous. Conservatives, horrendous. Tories, horrendous. The Liberal Party, what's the even point of that one existing, to be fairly honest? They should just join another political party. And the Reform Party, I don't know if I believe what they say they'll bring to the table. I've heard it too many times. I'm 30 years old. I might be young to some people, might be old to some people, but I'm 30 years old. And since the day I started voting, essentially the day I started going into politics, which was 16 years old, until now I'm 30 years old, never once in my lifetime, in between that time span, I've seen a politician actually say, we're going to do this, 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 and actually apply to it. Never happened, never seen it. But, we need somebody like Trump, and unfortunately, we don't have one. So best next thing would be, who knows? At this point, I don't even see the point of voting, to be fairly honest. UK wants you. I have a spare room, and I'm in Florida. Ooh, Florida's nice. Thank you for the offer, Artistic. Do you think the UK can get back on track? I don't see it. So can I use XRP and not sale? Can I stake for monthly profit? You could. If you want to do not financial advice whatsoever. I'm in Kentucky. I have a spare room. I have some room too. Let's go, Scott. Thank you for the offer. Canada, essentially. Canada, Australia, and the UK are all signing the same song, all singing the same song at the moment. It's definitely coordinated. Everything the leaders are saying and doing, it's like a broken record. One the other. I agree, 100%. I would love to leave. Unfortunately, I own nothing. Fair enough. I will have to stay in someone's random CMF member's basement. Hi, Miles, the CMF. Peg, good to see you. So how you doing? So on 17th September, can prices go to highs? Not too highs, but rate cuts will help the market space. Thank you, Miles, for this info. No problem, Tanner, anytime. Just China and UK, but UK is making China look like a safe haven. UK is a communist. How are you feeling about ACH? Good project still. Yeah, good project still. See you next time. Bye, Miles and CMF. Tanner, see you next time, brother. I'd rather be in business in China than the UK and pay Chinese tax. Look at their infrastructure in their cities. The British have a lot of parties. I wish we did inside the United States. The United States, we are blocked out by money. Dang, I'm late today. 30 is young. I'm 40, bro. Let's go CMF. Let's go Ray. With staking, how much return if XRP is $100? Depends on what percentage you're going for, where you're staking your assets at. Always welcome in Texas. So you already know this. Let's go, Ray. Thank you for that, brother. Sure, Miles. If I could go into politics, I would, but it's so dangerous. I agree. Now, on the topic of politics, EU sanctions Russian crypto and oil under US pressure. So the European Union is completing a sanctions package targeting Russian payments, cryptocurrency exchanges, and oil under pressure from President Trump to enhance measures against Russia. These sanctions impact EU's Russia financial interactions with potential market volatility in cryptocurrencies. The European Union is finalizing its 19th sanction package targeting Russian payments, crypto, and oil. These actions are prompted by US demands for more stringent measures potentially influencing European economic strategies and international relations. Key players include EU officials and the US President Donald Trump, who insists on quick actions. Trump's administration warns of American-imposed sanctions on Russian oil should Europe delay or fail to match US pressure. As essentially Trump proclaimed, Europe has to move. Energy revenue funding Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine needs to be shut off, and quickly. My administration's sanctions will only kick in if the European countries match the pressure. Donald Trump is asking the European countries to not be so stupid. In other words, I'll put it very simple. Europe decided to back a war against Russia by funding Ukraine, which some would say, okay, Europe wants to back Ukraine in a verse, essentially in a war against Russia. Fair enough. What's stupid is that then India buys oil from Russia, sells it back to Europe, which means Europe is funding the war for Ukraine and Russia. That's the stupid part. Because the EU won't buy oil from Russia directly because they're in a war. They're backing Ukraine. They don't want to fund Russia, but yet they buy Russian oil from India, which means they're still funding the Russian war. So Putin's basically, essentially, so Trump is the most simplest way saying it is saying, pick a side. Trump is trying to tell Europe, pick a side. Are you backing Ukraine in this war, or are you backing Russia in this war by funding their oil fundings? Europe has to move. Energy revenue funding Vladimir Putin's war on Ukraine needs to be shut off. The sanctions aim to disrupt critical sectors, including major Russian banks and energy firms. These measures could significantly impact cryptocurrency exchanges suspected of eliciting transactions linked to Russia's energy revenues. The political landscape faces a shift as the EU essentially coordinates with the US. Authorities emphasize that Russian oil imports to Europe have dramatically decreased, pressuring Russia's economic stability and influencing global energy markets, which is an absolute load of BS, because they're still buying oil from India, which gets it from Russia. Sanctions are expected to cause volatility in crypto markets, affecting assets with Russian exposure. Prior instances indicate the past sanctions led to price swings, particularly for the well-known tokens linked to Russian entities. The financial, regulatory, and technological repercussions could extend beyond immediate sanctions, and historical precedents suggest previous EU packages have effectively limited financial interactions in targeted sectors, confirming the potential disruptions to Russian market dynamics. So, honestly, Trump is asking for one thing. If you want to end the Ukraine versus Russia war, then stop funding Russia to continue this war. And he's saying this to Europe. Because if the EU wants to back Ukraine, fair enough. But stop buying Russian oil. So maybe that Russia doesn't have funding to go up against it, and they'll just close off the war. They'll just end the war. Which means they would have to buy US oil instead. Or they could just stop funding Ukraine as well and call it a day. There are many options on the table. One, stop funding Russia by buying Russian oil from India. Two, just stop funding Ukraine and just let Ukraine be on its own. Or three, stop buying oil from America. Putting that to one side. And moving on to the XRP news, the Ripple news of essentially tonight's segment. Before we talk about that, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. I'm more than happy to help you out. Let's see where we're at inside the comment section. Miles, if I go into... okay. I love San Antonio, Texas. I was stationed at Fort Sam, Houston. Let's go, Scott. Shelley says, well, I was going to offer you to come to Australia, but it's just as bad here. Fair enough. Yeah, Australia, I mean, yeah, Australia, UK, Canada, you're right. They're all on the same page. Miles, Miles, can you sanction decentralized crypto payments? You can't sanction them, no. You could shut down certain platforms. Sanction? No, because you could shut down certain platforms. You could essentially DDoS essentially certain platforms. Isn't decentralization designed to essentially navigate these types of actions? Yes and no. Anything could, with certain amount of pressure, be shut down in some sort of a way. We do live in a very controlled world. And as much as you think developers are incredibly intelligent people, but so are the people that are working for the government as well, anything's possible. They can't sanction decentralized platforms. Certain websites will be unreachable in certain jurisdictions if they get sanctioned in the DeFi space, but then you could just use a VPN to get around it. Unless they start banning VPN companies in certain jurisdictions, then that's going to get very interesting. You can't sanction the platform, but you can sanction from your own country's users being able to use the platform. "60 Minutes had a segment on something similar to what you were saying about the oil situation, Miles, last year. Thanks for your service, Commander." No problem, Scott. "My opinion is only Trump can affect these. UK trying to show long legs to restrict crypto holders in UK. If stablecoins limits come into store, it's in business account wallet instead. Loophole." Yes, but then they'll know essentially certain things. It's not really a loophole if you really think about it. But anyways, moving on to Ripple news, XRP news. XRP supply is dropping. You might have heard in the past week, and even today, that certain exchanges are having less XRP on stock, let's say, on the shelves. So XRP supply on Coinbase drops 90% and raises price speculation. The XRP supply on Coinbase has plunged about 90% over 3 months, sparking speculation is about the price surge. Although no official confirmation supports a essentially $10 price target or $5 price target or so on, this significant supply decrease could impact XRP's liquidity and pricing dynamics. Yet expert analysis and data do not endorse the prospects of rapid price increases to be happening. But it's just unusual that going into the regulations we are going into now, with everything else that's happening in the Clarity Act and the Ripple bank account and all the partnerships announcements, a lot of XRP is being taken off the exchanges, which is always a positive sign for any cryptocurrency. If a certain cryptocurrency there's less on the exchanges, then that's a positive sign. So if there's less Bitcoin on exchanges, that's a positive sign for Bitcoin. Less Ethereum on exchanges, that's a positive sign for Ethereum. It causes a scarce situation. In this case, it's XRP. And certain exchanges might have a lot going on, but certain exchanges have a lot less now. So the XRP supply in Coinbase has significantly decreased by 90% over the past 3 months. This drop has led to speculations about potential price movements. Though no official confirmation has been given, involved entities include essentially Ripple, responsible for XRP's maintenance, and Coinbase, a major US exchange, that have no public remarks from either party's essentially top executives. The decline in XRP supply might create a localized, essentially scarcity on Coinbase. However, no formal economic or institutional changes currently support or indicate a definitive, essentially substantial price increase. Community discussions on platforms such as Reddit and Twitter, in other words X, are showing mixed reactions. Many individuals are enthusiastic, but skepticism remains about XRP essentially reaching those massive price targets, is what they suggest. In this case, just $10. Past events include the SEC-related essentially holds and the liquidity fluctuations, and such essentially moderate price shifts without resulting in essentially dramatic rises. And these essentially provide context suggesting limited chances for a steep increase. Current market analysis predicts XRP's price to remain between $3 to $5 essentially dollars, and market regulatory conditions have yet to support the alleged potential of a massive boost coming along. Brad, CEO of Ripple, has not made any statements regarding why there is 90% drop in XRP supply on essentially Coinbase. And Coinbase isn't the only exchange that has less XRP now in stock on the shelves, in other words. It's always a positive sign, to be fairly honest, when there is less essentially cryptocurrencies on the exchanges for certain crypto projects. As I said, it says less Bitcoin, less Ethereum, less Solana, and in this case it's less XRP on exchanges, which means people are not willing to sell. If they're taking their XRP off exchanges, they're not willing to sell. If the exchange wallet itself is taking their essentially asset off the exchange, then that means they're not willing to sell either. If someone is not willing to sell, then that means they're holding on for something bigger and better. Simplest way to put it. Because if you're willing to sell, it'll be on the exchanges for buy and sell. But if you're taking it off the exchange, that means you're holding on to it for something bigger and better. Now, moving on from that, but staying relatively on the XRP topic. The first XRP ETF, which we talked about on Friday's live show, and I said it's not going to be happening on the 12th or 13th, as some people on X were suggesting it was going to happen. And I said it's on the 18th, technically. And it still seems to be remaining on the 18th. So they're suggesting if there is no pause, if the SEC doesn't come out and try to pause the XRP ETF, it could go through if there's no change of deadline. So a historical step is being taken in the cryptocurrency market. Rex Shares essentially is launching the Rex XRP ETF this week. Developed in collaboration with Rex Osprey, the new product will offer investors the opportunity to directly invest in spot XRP in the US for the first time. XRP is the world's third, essentially largest crypto asset by market capitalization, behind Bitcoin and Ethereum, obviously. And the XRP fund aims to directly mirror XRP's performance and will provide investors with direct access to the asset. The fund's investment's objective was announced as tracking XRP's price movements exclusive of fees and expenses. The Rex Observatory team had previously attracted attention with the SSK product. The fund's annual expenses include management fee, distribution, and service fees, and essentially under the category of 12B-1. And other expenses essentially are zero. Management expenses will be largely covered by Rex Advisors LLC. The fund will operate through a subsidiary of Rex, essentially XRP Cayman Portfolio SP, incorporated in the Cayman Islands. Several companies are currently racing to launch a spot XRP ETF. Eric, for example, previously said the funds could be approved within 2 to 4 months. It's true. About a month or 2 months ago, Eric said from Bloomberg, specialist ETF analyst, that we could be seeing XRP ETFs in Q4, pretty much. 94% chance also on Polymarket of XRP ETFs happening pretty much going forward until the end of the year. We should be getting XRP ETFs coming through. This could be the very first one. And as I said on Friday's live, it wasn't going to be released on 12th or the 13th. The deadline was always set around the 18th. Is it going to come out on the 18th is the bigger question. Now, some are arguing that this isn't an actual full-on XRP spot ETF. It's something similar to it. It has an 80% resemblance to an XRP ETF, to be fairly honest. Several companies are currently essentially racing on that matter, but Rex essentially approached this approval process with a clever legal solution. Unlike most ETFs, the fund chooses to be taxable C corporations. Therefore, distributions to owners will be taxed within the fund before being distributed to owners as dividends. It's a different type of ETF, but it could be the very first XRP ETF we could possibly see on the 18th, which is a day after if we get rate cuts. Imagine you wake up, Jerome Powell comes out and goes, rate cuts are happening. And the next day is the Rex XRP ETF. That would be a very nice day to see. Now, if nothing happens in terms of deadline movements or the SEC coming out saying pause it for a second or so on. Now, RLUSD shows resilience aimed market volatility. According to Ripple themselves, when they released RLUSD, they said it should be in the top 5 by the end of the year. And it is looking that way. Aimed at a broader market correction affecting major cryptocurrencies, Ripple's stablecoin, RLUSD, has demonstrated remarkable resilience. Current CoinMarketCap data indicates that a 24-hour trading volume of RLUSD has increased by 31.25%. To take this current position of 114 million, which reflects excellent market interest in spite of the bearish trends inside the market space. This increase essentially increases the trading volume, indicates RLUSD's capability to free itself from overall volatility experienced in the cryptocurrency markets. Whereas XRP, which functions in the same ecosystem, has experienced decline in value because it follows Bitcoin's footsteps and because of our regulations, RLUSD has had a positive perspective in contrast to that last 24 hours. RLUSD is gradually essentially carving out a unique space for itself in a rapidly growing stablecoin sector. In contrast to other established stablecoins such as Tether's USDT, RLUSD emphasizes tokenization of real-world assets, which has made it stand out as a rival in a competitive market space. This business strategy makes RLUSD potentially worthy of investments, particularly for investors interested in more predictable, essentially steady digital returns in the absence of unstable market dynamics. Although the bearish climate is taking its toll on altcoins and they are finding it hard to keep their profits, RLUSD stability offers some much needed cushion to essentially to its ecosystem. Its liquidity capacity may prove a valuable tool, which essentially, when markets change their mood, especially with expectations of reductions of interest rate cuts coming up soon, with the market still negative, essentially navigating the corrective course on uncertainties, RLUSD's performance serves as an example of the feasibility of stablecoins with distinct utility and concerns of integrating assets in the real world. And the market cap of RLUSD continues to approach the $1 billion mark. Observers are kneelingly waiting more progress essentially in the market space, particularly with the respect to minting and burning of the coins would guide the future price trends. To sum up, the fact that RLUSD managed to withstand a general market crash proves the increased popularity of the stablecoin, the asset-based digital currency. As the cryptocurrency market resets, RLUSD is likely to play an increasingly important role as a stablecoin in this market space, as the economic essentially trend, as the broader economic, essentially as liquidity dynamics evolve in response to broader economic trends. RLUSD, in Ripple's words, is going to become a top 5 stablecoin. Eventually, will become a top 3 stablecoin, and eventually should just be number 1 stablecoin, to my point of view. Sticking on the topic of Ripple, Ripple pledges $25 million to boost small businesses and veterans. Amazing. Honestly, amazing. More countries, in my opinion, should be investing into their veterans because a lot of countries forget about their veterans and just push them to the side. And that is wrong to do. All of you might have heard this. Some of you might have heard this inside the crypto space, but I'm going to share it with you anyways, because what Ripple is doing is great news, in my opinion, helping our veterans. Ripple has announced a $25 million commitment inside the United States to strengthen small businesses and support veterans. The financial technology firm announced a major partnership with Acorn essentially Opportunity Fund and Hire Heroes USA, targeting undeserved small business owners and transitioning veterans. This marks essentially Ripple's second $25 million donation in 2025, according to the announcement. Small businesses currently employ nearly half of the American workforce and generate 43.5% of the nation's GDP. However, many still struggle to access affordable capital. At the same time, about 200,000 veterans transition to civilian life each year, with 80% facing joblessness at the start. And that shouldn't be the case for veterans, to be fairly honest. Brad, CEO of Ripple, essentially stressed the move, saying small businesses and veterans are 2 of the most powerful engines of the American progress. Yet both face barriers that limit their full economic impact. Ripple's funding will fuel lending, essentially programs, training, and essentially new fintech-focused career opportunities. Moreover, the Opportunity Fund expects the donation to generate $125 million of small business lendings. Ripple's new Digital Leap Forward Accelerator program will also equip entrepreneurs with training and $500,000 in immediate fundings. And additionally, Hire Heroes USA plans to generate 14,000 jobs and opportunities for veterans and military spouses, which is amazing. It's not they're only helping the veterans, but they're also helping their spouses because of someone that might have passed away during essentially a war type of scenario. Their spouse still needs help. So Ripple sees it as not only are we helping small businesses and veterans, but we're also helping the veterans, essentially spouses, just in case. The initiative will also introduce a fintech pathway program expected to create $900 million in annual income impact. Ross Dickman, essentially the CEO of Hire Heroes USA, emphasized Ripple's investment is a powerful affirmation of our mission to ensure veterans and military spouses never have to face the civilian workforce alone again. Furthermore, the nonprofits will receive donations in RLUSD via the giving block, essentially, and Uphold, allowing them to directly experience digital asset management. So they're going to get RLUSD as well, which is brilliant. Ripple's strategy mirrors its May donation to Donors Choose and Tech for essentially and Teach for America. That earlier grant funded 30,000 classroom projects and expanded teachers' resources nationwide. Ripple's been doing a lot of funding, essentially inside the United States and outside the United States by helping people who actually need help. I mean, they helped out farmers in African, essentially, countries. They helped out farmers in other countries as well around the world also. Now, essentially helping out veterans, veteran spouses, small business owners inside the United States. Beforehand, they essentially provided, essentially grant fundings for 30,000 classrooms inside the United States, essentially nationwide. As of writing, Ripple's native token XRP trades at $3.02 with a 24-hour trading volume of essentially $6.04 billion, according to CoinMarketCap. How the token has dropped recently for 0.97% due to Ripple's footsteps in the tech store. Ripple is blending essentially philanthropy with digital innovation, proving stablecoins can drive measurable community and economic impact at scale. That is incredible, honestly, to be fairly honest, because for some reason, a lot of countries, or all countries, you could even say, forget about their veterans. When they need them, when they need soldiers, soldiers are there for them. But when they come back, when the veterans need help, the country decides to push them to the side. And that is wrong, because those men and women gave up their life, essentially their normal lives, to help their country out. And when they come back, they should be treated like human beings, first of all, and they should be given the help they need. And to push them to the side is wrong. And I see a lot of countries doing this, and it's incredibly horrible to see. So for Ripple to be doing this, incredible, to help out the veterans. More countries should be doing that as well, to be fairly honest. And on that note, we have come to the endings of tonight's live. This was the CMF Live. CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. London time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. And this was episode 373 of the CMF Live. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. Let's go to the comment section first before we do go, obviously. Just giving them a lot of this rate. Can you explain why this is happening? That was regarding XRP less on exchanges. It's always a good sign when there's less XRP on exchanges, or any token less on exchanges, because it shows that they don't want to sell, they want to keep it because something better is coming along. Great question. Everybody should know about that. Nita, the other manipulations. If XRP continues to decrease, institutions win in their efforts to push out retailers, correct? Yes, but only if people decide to sell. If they don't, then they're good. No one can tell me that we don't have the best family, aka group online. I do not want to hear it. Let's go, Scott. Crypto Mouse Family, the best. Thank you so much, Scott. And facts. Miles, I asked before, but please repeat it for anyone that is new in the group. It is better to have actually XRP than the ETF, even though the ETF will allow for an additional influx of more cash. I agree 100%. It is always better to have XRP than any other ETF out there. XRP itself, an incredible asset. The ETF, if you really want to go for it, but XRP itself, why not go for it instead? Veterans, yes, let's go. Veterans, yes, thanks for posting today, Miles. Let's go, Scott. Go Ripple. Let's go, Peg. That's awesome. Let's go, Autistic. Let's Ripple. Let's go, Cali. Exactly, Miles. Let's go, Stormy. Facts, Miles. I love your input on veterans. Love you, man. Let's go, Scott. And see you tomorrow about the same time as usual. Love you too, brother. Night, Miles at CMF. Pablo, see you tomorrow same time as usual. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Let's go, Stormy. See you tomorrow same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Peg, see you tomorrow same time as usual. Miles, outstanding. Let's go, Scott. See you tomorrow. I salute you, man. Let's go, Scott. See you tomorrow at the same time as usual. Good night, Miles, and thanks for another. Thanks as normal for another great live. Let's go, Addy. Good night, Miles. Thanks for the news. See you tomorrow. Free and forever. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Great live. As always, much appreciated. Night and day, CMF. Let's go, Shelly. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Thank you, Miles. Have a great night. Let's go, Mike. See you tomorrow at the same time as usual. Good night, Miles. And for another great live, let's go. Coming to see you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Just going to say it's 84 and sunny here in Florida. Come over whenever you want. Lol. See you tomorrow, same time. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Thank you for the offer. I'll keep it under consideration. Good night, Miles, and all the CMF. Thank you. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Paul, night, mate. See you tomorrow at the same time as usual as well. I'll see you break tomorrow, same time as usual. Love the news on the vets. Thank you, Miles, and night all. Let's go, Susie, and see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. See you break tomorrow, same time as usual. This was episode 373 of the CMF Live. Like, comment, retweet, follow, subscribe if you already haven't. If you have, thank you so much for the likes and retweets and for following and for subscribing during this live as well. Welcome to the CMF family. Disclaimer of this live, as always, not financial advice, no political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. I will see everybody tomorrow. Good night, Miles, for a great show tonight. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Call us. See you tomorrow, sometimes usual as well. Like and repost on X. Facts. CMF members, like and repost this live on X if you already haven't. If you have, thank you so much. And put a comment outside the live as well. I will see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are around the world. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Like, comment, retweet, follow, subscribe if you already haven't. If you have, thank you so much. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Love you all.